Is 2022 the best time to take advantage of the huge price gains in the housing market for your rental property? We'll be talking about what to think about if you're considering putting your property on the market. Hey, I'm Kevin with eXp Realty down here in Destin, Florida. Now, before we can consider whether it makes sense to sell an investment property, we need to establish a frame of reference for understanding where we are in this market and where we're going. In Jay Scott's book called Recession-Proof Real Estate Investing, he does a great job of using three major cycles as the guidepost to determine where we were, where we are now, and where we are going. The three cycles that he covers in his book are the long-term debt cycle, the real estate cycle, and the business cycle. Altogether, they play an important role in our cycle-based economy, but for today's video, we will focus on the business cycle because that is the most frequent of all three cycles, and it correlates really well with real estate investing. So the business cycle has four phases, and we could break these down into the expansion phase, the peak phase, the recession phase, and the recovery phase. And it flows like a hill, right? So we start off at the bottom. We're coming out of the recession phase and we hit that bottom inflection point. Then we start to rise back up, going up the recovery curve into the expansion curve, and then we peak, and then we hit that top inflection point. Once we hit that top inflection point at the peak, then we're going to start to see that we come back down, we enter into that recession, and the cycle starts all over again until we get to that bottom inflection point and we make our way back up. What does this mean for you? Well, it may take longer for you to sell your property now that people have a harder time with access to credit or even affordability, whereas the price was high, but the rates were low. It still kept the monthly mortgage payment affordable, or at least in the investor side of it, it still provided cash flow. And now you're seeing that these higher interest rates with these higher prices is making it very difficult for certain types of investment strategies to cash flow. Fortunately, we're still seeing on the short-term rental side that we can cash flow well. And that's because the magnitude of returns for short-term rentals is much greater than something that might be stable with a long-term rental strategy. So in addition to maybe taking longer for your property to sell, you may have to reevaluate your pricing strategy based on the most recent comps that have sold in the past 6 months, and to see if listing at that comp price or even slightly lower is better than listing for a higher price if you're looking for a faster sale. Now, I see most of the short-term rental investors fit into one of the following three buckets. It's you bought before 2021, before the prices really took off and interest rates were still exceptionally low. Either you had a lot of equity and you were able to cash out refi into a really low rate, or you bought a property with a great rate and prices appreciated 20% year over year and you're still sitting on a decent amount of equity. Now the next bucket is you bought sometime in 2022 between January and April, before those rate hikes really kicked in and had an effect on your cash flow numbers. Now there isn't much equity, but there is a relatively low interest rate that you locked in that allows you to have at least some level of cash flow for your short-term rental. And last but not least is number three. If you're in this bucket, you're just buying a vacation home to enjoy with your family and your friends, and as long as it can pay for itself when you're not using it, the cash flow is not a major concern. Now, if you fit into one of these three buckets, how you approach the decision to sell will be very different. For bucket number one, if there is a decent level of equity, this may be a great opportunity to try and do a 1031 exchange into a bigger property. Now that prices are softening, competition is fading, and sellers are more flexible with contingencies or even willing to help with some closing costs. For bucket number two, it may not be the best time to sell right now because prices are not really increasing much at all, and the rates are much higher than what you locked in, so it will be difficult to find a deal that cash flows well enough to justify selling your property. You should be finding ways to optimize your booking to generate as much returns as possible. And for bucket number 3, just enjoy the ride and pick a established vacation rental company in the market that your property is in, and make sure they can deliver what you're looking for as little headache as possible. So when it comes to the question of whether or not now is the right time to sell, the answer is it depends on your investment situation, your exit strategy, even risk tolerance, and what phase of the market cycle we are in. Now, there are even more factors to consider depending on what type of properties you have and the market you're in. So I would suggest that you get in touch with a local realtor and pick their brain and see what they have to say about their market and what they think about selling today. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree. I would love to read what you have to say about this market. I'll leave links below in the description to all resources in the video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. I release new videos every Monday, so until next time, take care.